Hey everyone, I've just read Factfulness, a book by Hans Rosling, Swedish, a doctor, well he's passed away unfortunately, a doctor, a researcher, and his whole mission in life became about combating the fact that most people in the world are so wrong about a lot of important questions, and so they don't see the world accurately. There's a great line in here that sums things up. It's not verbatim, but it's pretty much: you can't trust the news to tell you about the world, but you can trust statistics. Now, statistics may seem like a boring topic. Believe me, it's not. Not the way it's presented in here. If everybody read this book and everybody actually paid attention and applied what they learned in this book, then the world would be much better. People like Trump and Farage wouldn't get any votes. That's going to be a good thing, right? What he does is he presents information in a unique way. See, that is actually a graph, and it shows things very clearly. Some of the things he talks about in here are essentially instincts, like I said, mistakes people make when they're thinking or when they're looking at the world. One is a straight line instinct. So you see a graph that does this, this is how fast children grow, right? And then you extrapolate and you think it will always do that, which of course is bullshit, because if that was the case, then you'd have people growing to 20 feet tall. Most graphs look like this, right? Something like that, normal distribution. And also most graphs overlap. So let's say if you're a Trump supporter who thinks every Mexican is an evil rapist and a drug dealer, right? Seems to be the case. Then you'd probably think that if there was a graph showing all of the good Trump supporters and all the terrible Mexicans, it would look something like this. Trump supporters, Mexicans, nothing in common, good, evil. But actually the graphs go like this: Mexicans, Trump supporters. Most people are in the middle. I'll stop picking on Trump now. And the other thing it does is it talks about a website which I suggest you all check out. It's called dollarstreet.org, which shows exactly how people live all over the world, and it categorizes them according to not their skin color, not their country, not their religion. That's all bullshit. It's all irrelevant. You find that out when you read this book, about the amount of income they have per month. Money, right? Money makes the difference. It shows why sending women to school is about the best thing that's ever happened in the world. It shows how population is now shrinking in most of the world, so that puts off this terrible, Armageddon, this terrible apocalyptic scenario when there's just too many people and not enough resources. There's a great line in there. There's a great section there where he says everybody harps on about this great time when we lived in balance with nature. There weren't too many of us. But what actually used to happen is the average number of children per woman about 100 years ago worldwide, it wasn't just the terrible Muslims, the terrible Africans all having 800 children who then come over here and invade our great country. None of that. Everybody, the average was about 7 children, but we stayed in harmony with nature, in balance with nature, because about 5 of those would die. So it's 2 children per woman. Now, for the first time ever, we're actually living in balance with nature. Most women have 2 children because they're not worried about the rest of them dying, and so they invest more heavily into those children. It makes for a better world. The world's a much better place than you think. You need to read this book. This is becoming a bit of a lecture. So you need to read this book. This book, it's amazing. This is the second book I'll give 10 out of 10. Yeah. Maybe not life-changing, but certainly will change your outlook. Certainly will change the way you think. And it's beautifully written. It's beautifully written. The stories he tells. He used to be a doctor, so what he'd do is he'd take his students, his medical students, from what he calls a level 1 country, i.e. the rich, who live like you and I probably live. If you've got a phone or you've got a laptop and you're watching this online, then you're one of the rich. There's 1 billion rich. There's 1 billion in extreme poverty. And everybody else, the other 5 billion people on Earth, are in the middle, levels 2 and 3. And what happens where you live is to do with what level you're on. It all comes down to how much you make per month. This is the longest review I've ever done because this book has got so much good stuff in it. It really is fantastic. One of the stories he tells, I'll leave you with. He took some of his medical students to Africa to see a midwife there. Africa as a level 1 country. And level 1 countries today, the ones where there's most poverty, so the worst places to live on earth, going by life expectancy, everything else. Somalia, Afghanistan, and the Central African Republic, Congo, Zaire, it used to be called all of those things. And the reasons why it's level 1 country. So the students asked the midwife, what piece of equipment would you most like to have? And her answer she said, I'd like to have a torch, because when you're traveling from village to village at night, it's difficult to see the snakes, even in the moonlight. It's a totally different world. And we've all been there. The UK in 118 years ago was the same as, say, Africa is now. And that's how much the world has improved. It's absolutely amazing. Can't say much more, but thoroughly recommend this book. Really good. Definitely one worth reading more than once. And I never knew this when I bought this, but the review on the front, one of the most important books I've ever read, an indispensable guide to thinking clearly about the world, by some guy called Bill Gates. Didn't know he'd written that. Melinda Gates on the back, she likes it too. These people have got good taste in books. So I will leave you with that. It's Factfulness by Hans Rosling, along with the help of Ola Rosling and Anna Rosling Ronlund. I'm probably not saying that right. Excellent. 10 out of 10. Essential reading. Essential reading as far as I'm concerned. So go out, read the book. I think you'll enjoy it. Hope you enjoyed the review.